Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go, man. Hunt the ball. Let's go, family on 3. 1, 2, 3, family.
Hello, football family. Welcome in Week 5. Ravens, Monday night. Team from Indianapolis coming to town. Big game. Stadium should be lit. Just the second home game this year. Second straight primetime game for Baltimore. And in here to talk about with me is Jake Vogel. Jake, we're a man down tonight. What's going on, man?
I'm doing well, man. We're missing Garnett, but we're going to have to hold it up for him.
We sure are. Garnett, I don't know if he minds me telling his personal business, but I am. He's coming to Baltimore, man. He's coming to Baltimore. I think he's going to storm M&T Bank Stadium. Just a feeling. But Garnett, with us in spirit. Love you, G. Hope everything's going well for you, sir. So, Jake, what do you think is, before we get into the individual matchups, what do you think about, give me a state of the Ravens address here, 4 games in, which is usually the quarter mark. How are you feeling about the team in general, or any particular part of the team you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, so this is a team that has been up and down early in the year. I think they kind of found their stride and their confidence in week 2 by beating the Chiefs. Then they had a dip in a game that we saw as historical kick by the GOAT, Justin Tucker. And then we saw a really nice, solid, all-around team performance last week against Denver in Mile High. So I really think this is a team on the rise. Not that many people around the NFL would say the Ravens weren't already in the playoff consideration, but Baltimore's passing offense has taken so many big strides this year. Lamar's throwing the ball, slinging it really well. The spiral is tight. That doesn't necessarily matter, but it looks good, and the wide receivers are getting open. Hollywood Brown has not had issues all year getting open. He just had the case of the drops in the Detroit game. So I've been really pleased with Hollywood, with Sammy Watkins, and the contributions from your guy, James Prochet II, and Devin Duvernay as well. So I am looking forward to what this team can develop into, especially when talking about the passing game. And hopefully we'll see Rashad Bateman pretty soon.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see Rashad Bateman pretty soon. Great statement. If he's not ready, though, I say just give him time, make sure he's ready, because right now the offense is humming, especially that wide receiver group. I would say overall I feel better, Jake, than I did even before the season started, like right before the season. So we had all those injuries, and then, all this talk about the passing game. Any kind of talk in preseason is just that talk. You have to go out there and prove it. And, after week 1, I was a little bit down on the team. Week 2, things were still a little unsettled. We come back with a great victory. But at this point, after this game with the Broncos, seeing the progression in the pass game, I'm probably more hyped than I was before the season. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Odafe, Justin Houston, Tyus Bowser got it going last week. Calais Campbell's been playing lights out. So all those players I mentioned are part of the defensive front for the Baltimore Ravens, which is exceeding expectations, especially the rookie Odafe. Just some dominating stuff out there. So good signs. The things that we kind of needed to go right so far have gone right for the Baltimore Ravens, which leads us into this big game, AFC game. Every game is huge. This one, Monday Night Football here in Baltimore, the old Indianapolis team coming to town. We always start with the offensive line, and with the Ravens having the ball. This Ravens offensive line has seen some bright spots despite the injuries at left tackle to Villanueva. McCary has been a bright spot. Brosman's been great. Zeitler's been great. The left guard competition seems to be working itself out one way or the other. Both guys are playing pretty well. So when I look over at the Colts defensive line, now their best player, in my opinion, on defense is on that defensive line, and that's DeForest Buckner. He's got a big guy next to him, looks good. But from a pass rushing standpoint, nothing special there. Kwity Paye, hurt, just hasn't been effective. A non-factor for this team, I guess, is the best way to say it so far. And given our strength on the interior line, I kind of like the way the Ravens match up in this matchup, especially when you have guys like Bozeman and Zeitler and one of the Bens trying to double team DeForest Buckner. So how do you see this matchup playing out, edge rushers and interior of this defensive line for the Colts versus the offensive line of the Ravens?
Yeah, so you really mentioned it at the top. One of their best players is clearly DeForest Buckner. That guy is a wrecking machine. Last year he had a huge year after being traded from the 49ers. And I think he is earning that contract in Indianapolis right now. Uh, Pro Football Reference has him sitting at right around 84% of the defensive snaps played so far this year, which is a really, really high number when you're talking about a defensive lineman. So maybe that plays into the Ravens' favor if they can get him on the field for a ton of plays, perhaps wear him out by the end of the game. So hopefully the pass rush isn't as strong. But the rest of the guys on the team aren't very threatening. I would be ignorant if I didn't mention Darius Leonard. So that's another freak in the game. This year, even talking to some Colts fans, there's been some regression, but I think a lot of that is just due to his health. He's clearly dealing with an ankle injury. It's wrapped up. You and I talked about it before the show. It almost looks like a cast out there, and that is making it difficult for him to move the same way that we've seen in previous years. So he is another key part of their team. I think he's going to be still a solid contributor in this game, and his football IQ is definitely higher than any of the inside linebackers we have in Baltimore right now.
Yeah, overall offensive line versus defensive line, though, I feel pretty strong in this game because, like I said, I think that if the Ravens have a weakness, it's at the tackle spot without Ronnie Stanley, still some uncertainty. Villanueva playing through the injury. Carey's been playing great, but, overall, teams with those outside pass rushers like we saw week 1 in Vegas are the teams that make me nervous when we talk about their defensive front versus our O-line. This is the opposite. Their strength is obviously in the interior, which is where we've played really, really well this year. Also excited to see Ben Cleveland. You're a Georgia guy, so you've seen plenty of Ben Cleveland. Put up a cut up on my channel earlier this week. In fact, yesterday, of all Ben Cleveland snaps and all of Ben Power snaps versus Denver. I'm not sure, Jake, if you saw that or not. I think you did. What are you thinking about this left guard competition and how it shapes up? I think now would be a good time to talk about that.
Yeah, so Ben Cleveland has been a favorite of mine since he was at Georgia. I already had that fandom of him and the Bulldogs, so it was a match made in heaven when the Ravens were able to snag one of my Bulldogs. A very rare thing. I don't know if many of the listeners are aware that the Ravens just flat out haven't had many UGA players, and they really have had a good program for a while. So I'm very happy with that. Ben Cleveland, I think, is trending in the right direction. He is a more powerful blocker than Ben Powers. He doesn't always finish his blocks to the level that he could, but I think he is probably more sound in pass protection than what I've seen from Powers. And I mean, even if you go back to his Georgia tape, he was really good at identifying blitzers and helping the man next to him, whether that was the center or that was the right tackle, because he played right guard primarily at UGA. I think he's doing that pretty well at the NFL level, and he should be the guy taking over that left guard job soon. We'll see what the coaches do because they're certainly swapping them in and out. But I like the matchup of Cleveland versus the front in Indianapolis.
Yes, I just wanted to add that my overall take from doing that cut up was that if you were going with a strict grading system, I believe that Powers is grading slightly higher play to play. His ability to climb to the second level, I think, is much better than Ben Cleveland's. But when you see Ben Powers getting bent backwards, getting overpowered, it really looks like it takes every fiber in Ben Powers' being to get the job done. Whereas with Ben Cleveland, it looks easy. Ben Cleveland's also a young player. I expect him to keep getting better with the more snaps. Think he needs the experience. Little disappointed in the nastiness. Cole Jackson mentioned this, and it's evident in that cut up where he's just playing a little bit tentative. Got a comment on that video saying the same thing, so other people are seeing it. But overall, I think it's time for Cleveland, and I would like to see Ben Powers held out and kept healthy because he's the guy with experience at either guard spot. So if something were to happen to Zeitler, Ben Powers would be going over there anyway. Let's keep our swing guard healthy rather, and I'd like to see Ben Cleveland. But talking about the running game, you mentioned Darius Leonard in this game. Spot on, man. Like it's one thing to have your ankle heavily taped under, but when your left cleat is basically covered in tape, looking like a white cast over a black cleat, that tells me that he's clearly not right, and his speed, his mobility is clearly affected. And the reason I could say with strength that Buckner is their best player is because of how hobbled Darius Leonard looks. Bobby Okereke, his sidekick, looks quick, very good linebacker. Those two will be on the field a lot for Indianapolis. They barely come off the field. They have a third linebacker, run stuffer. But how do you see this Ravens run game when it comes to running the ball? Our backs, their linebackers. How do you see that unfolding?
Yeah, so our running back situation is still very much a committee in Baltimore. Tyson Williams was held out against Denver. I think most people in Ravens flock view Williams as the running back with the highest upside. I mean, he's the youngest, clearly has the most juice, athleticism still left in the tank, whereas these other guys are proven veterans, but certainly have some tread taken off their tires, worn down. So I'm excited to see what Le'Veon Bell can do. He showed up pretty well in the Denver game, but we just didn't get the ball really moving in that run game because Denver committed pretty much their whole defensive game plan to stopping the run. So I anticipate a little bit more balance in this one. I think the runners are going to have some success. We will get that record. We will take that from the Steelers and have over 100 rushing yards, which is not a ton, but especially for this Baltimore team. But I think we will be able to pull that off, and that'll be a mixture of the running backs and Lamar.
Yeah, well said. I think that they are going to be all out on getting this rushing record. Obviously, you did what you did last week. But that really has nothing to do, I guess, Jake, with like how it plays out in game, down to down.
Mm-hmm.
Very much feeling our way. I am in favor. I like Murray's role. I want to see more of Le'Veon Bell, like you said. My thinking on the third spot is it's time to get one of the young guys into that spot, see what they have. You mentioned the tread on the tires of some of our players. I like Devontae Freeman. He's handled himself well since he's been in Baltimore. Probably makes Coach Harbaugh feel good that he's got another veteran. But with two veterans that you're counting on already, give me, even if it's not Tyson, even if it's Nate McCrary, mentioned this early, I'm intrigued with McCrary's speed and his elusiveness particularly. And I would like to see what he could do if we could get him in some space. So overall, I think that the Ravens will be able to run the ball, do a decent job doing so. Very active still. Indianapolis front, but they're kind of hurting compared to, they didn't look quite like the quick, fast, just overall defense full of athletes we saw last year.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Nate McCrary was a guy I loved in the preseason. And you mentioned Devontae Freeman. I feel like McCrary can perform that same role that Freeman has in these couple games. And perhaps do it at a higher level just because he has that speed that Freeman is lacking a little bit. You see that horizontal movement with the running back going east-west. McCrary can do that, and then he can get north-south, where Freeman isn't showing that same level of speed that he once had in Atlanta.
Yeah, so moving on to the Ravens wide receivers, that has been one of the bright spots of the team. The passing game, mentioned it in the opening. Hollywood Brown playing well, Sammy Watkins playing well, Prochet, Duvernay stepping up, Mark Andrews having a really good start to the season. So when you look at this passing attack, I mean, last week the Ravens, I mentioned passing yards usually don't mean a whole lot. They're not a pure indicator. But last week, Jake, we needed those yards, man, and we got them. You look at the Indianapolis defense, Xavier Rhodes, Jake, he's struggling, buddy. Like, he is not the same player he was years ago in Minnesota. Um, Kenny Moore, good slot player, good slot corner. And then, of course, you have Rock Ya-Sin, player I like coming out of the draft, by the way, but he's been up and down. Isaiah Rodgers hasn't been welcomed to the NFL very kindly. So I feel like this is a matchup that heavily favors the Ravens.
Yeah, I agree with that. The way that the ball, it's really more about the Ravens receivers than it is about the Colts secondary in this one for me. Sammy Watkins, Hollywood Brown, perhaps Rashad Bateman, James Prochet, Devin Duvernay, all these guys are playing well. And with the coaching that we've talked about ad nauseum, these guys are doing things that we haven't seen them do in previous years. So I'm really not that worried about the secondary that the Colts have, especially in the cornerback room. They have a solid safety, Julian Blackman, but yeah, I also liked Rock Ya-Sin, but Xavier Rhodes doesn't have it anymore, and these wide receivers are running really crisp routes, and they're going to be able to get open.
Yeah, Julian Blackman, good young player, I think. Kari Willis is their strong safety, decent run defender. We probably should have mentioned him in the run defense too. But yes, overall matchup, Jake, I really just think it has to do with Lamar. In this game, quarterbacks have good games, bad games. The thing is, even if Lamar has an off game, he's giving you something somewhere, going to make plays in this game. So I'm really excited to see the passing offense. I don't care about the yards. I just want to see efficiency. I would like to see Lamar up around 70% completions. And, no offense to Indianapolis, but they're 1-3 team that just lost to Jacoby Brissett pretty handily, especially at the beginning of that game. So this game, to me, on offense is about us more than it is about Indianapolis. I'm looking forward to us to attack both in the run game, in the pass game. Basically one of those games, Jake, where you can do what you want and get the job done a couple of different ways.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really see this as a balanced approach on offense. We will see if Indianapolis has different plans, if they completely sell out one way or another. But after a couple weeks of that, I imagine they're going to be a little scared to completely sell out for the run. Maybe hey, the score is lower if they're running the ball. Maybe we address the passing game a little bit in this one.
Yeah, another note I wanted to say about the Indianapolis defense from a philosophical standpoint, looks like they're in a ton of nickel defense, Jake. Looks like they stick with their, Okereke and Leonard at linebacker. Then they'll have Kenny Moore in the slot, two outside corners, two safeties. So, they're going to match up. They're going to have to do something different against this run game, I believe. You may see their third linebacker in there a bit. And if we can take Kenny Moore off the field in favor of a third linebacker, I think that just opens things up for us. I could see a guy like Andrews having a big game in this, despite the talent of Darius Leonard hobbling all over the field. It'll be interesting to see how they cover Mark Andrews. And then really from a Hollywood Brown standpoint, I don't think they have anybody on that team who can really hang with them. Not many cornerbacks have the athletic ability to do so when Hollywood's right. But in this game, I guess what I'm saying is a very safe type defense that the Colts play, and I think that plays into the Ravens' advantage.
Yeah, they definitely have a safe unit. That is the right term for it. They're not a bad defense. They are very solid and very sound. And I really like the idea of trying to get more linebackers on the field in place of their slot corner because Zaire Franklin, their other linebacker, has 19% of the defensive snaps played this year. He is not going to be ready for the tight ends, especially Mark Andrews. I'm not sure if that responsibility is going to be Darius Leonard's all game. If Bobby Okereke he gets out into space and covers a little bit, because I know he has the athleticism too. But the passing game could really be explosive in this one, depending on how Greg Roman draws it up.
Yeah, I see Okereke and Blackman being the main guys on Andrews. I think that they'll bring in their third linebacker to take your Ricard or your Tomlinson, whoever it is, and then maybe this is a sneaky Josh Oliver game because what if you put go to 22 personnel, put Ricard in there with a running back, and put Oliver in there with Andrews. Well, they got 4 big guys in there. Let's put out our base package. I feel like that's where we can take advantage of their third linebacker, no matter what they do with them in that situation. So I mentioned the word safe, Jacob, and this offense for the Colts, their best players are both running backs. Again, in my opinion, Ryan Kelly is a fine center. But when I look at the overall talent, again, like the word safe kind of comes to mind, which doesn't really describe an offense adequately. But I would say a steady offense. Carson Wentz, let's give your thoughts on him before we get into the battle on the line of scrimmage. To me, Jake, when I watched that Dolphins-Colts game, Carson Wentz looked pretty good. Like, I don't think that this struggles of a 1-3 team are lying on Carson Wentz. He's still going to make his mistakes, but he can still hurt you. And quite frankly, he gave the Ravens some problems last year in Philadelphia.
Yeah, absolutely right. He was a pretty bad quarterback by most metrics, if not all metrics last year. But you mentioned it. He did give the Ravens a tough time. It was kind of one of those games that the Ravens were up, and then he came storming back and made the game really close. It could have gone either way. Thankfully, Baltimore pulled that one out. But new team, and he's still a fighting quarterback. Like, he gives you a chance to win games. Sometimes he's the reason you might lose a game, but he plays for a full 60 minutes, and you can tell the kind of toughness the guy has playing through those injuries. He has those banged up ankles. I just talked to some Colts guys on a podcast, and they were saying, this game is probably his first game being 90 to 95%. So they think he's on the mend. I don't know how much that scares you, how much that scares me, but he's formidable. If things bounce the right way, he can definitely win a game, pull off an upset in Baltimore. But let's get to those other players in the matchup, like you mentioned, the running backs.
Right. Yeah. And one last note on Wentz. I think that if I had to say what's the X factor in this game, he would be it because, if he doesn't play really well, I love the Ravens in this game. Carson Wentz is going to have a flashback to when he was probably the leading candidate for the MVP before he got hurt. He's capable of that kind of game. And it's interesting that you just said the Indianapolis guys think he's the healthiest that he's ever been. So he's going to need to carry this team along with their running game. And that running game, the biggest thing that's holding it back is that offensive line of Indianapolis. And Jake, just a reminder of how quickly things can change in the NFL. When you looked at that was one of the Colts' strengths was their offensive line. Now, of course, Costanzo's gone. They're replacing him. Quentin Nelson is out of this game. Huge loss for the Colts. They still have Ryan Kelly. Glowinski's their right guard and right tackle. I mean, they don't even really know who they're playing, much like the Ravens. So there are some advantages. Eric Fisher at left tackle has really been struggling. Looks lethargic. Maybe you can give us the Colts guys' takes on that. But when I look at this matchup, Jake, what I'm most excited about is the edge rushers. Your Adafio Way, your Justin Houston's, your Tyus Bowser. I mean, heck, whoever we bring in there on the edge is, I think, going to be able to bring pressure. We've seen Calais play more 5 technique this year, been providing that outside pass rush. So I love the way we match up against this team, both versus the run, versus the pass. I love our defensive line versus the Colts offensive line.
I agree 100%. So an interesting little tidbit, I guess it can be a bold take later. Justin Houston, obviously played for the Colts the last 2 years. He is 1.5 sacks away from 100 for his career. I am thinking he has a really good shot to get that in this game. He's going to be playing maybe not extra hard. Players get in those press conferences prior to the game and they say, it's the same old, same week, but I think he's going to have a good game, especially against these tackles, the banged up offensive line, No Quentin Nelson to help out the left tackle. Right tackle hasn't been great. They were talking about Julian Davenport, the Colts guys, saying, if he's in the game, it does not look good for us. So, Owe, Houston, Calais Campbell, Justin Matabike, wrecking that interior. This could be a very good game for the Ravens defensive line, similarly to what we just saw in Denver.
Yes, and a couple of things there. Number one, man, what a great point when it comes to the struggles on the outside of this line and Justin Houston going into this game. Now, the Ravens are well aware. Justin Houston's well aware. Harbaugh's well aware. Justin Houston wants this 100 sacks. He said so. And then I found it really interesting. The second part is at the end of Justin Houston's press conference yesterday, the reporter, it was like the last 10 seconds, I think, of the press conference. Like, I almost turned it off. They were like, was there ever thought of coming to Indy? And it basically, his answer was like, they didn't want me. So when you leave a place like that, and now all of a sudden you're playing them on Monday Night Football, 1.5 sacks away, I think that, like he has a real good chance of getting this. Yeah. And the difference is going to be on the Ravens offense. If they can get out to a big lead, put Indianapolis in passing situations, I think there's a real good chance that Wink's going to overload that side or match up or stunt Justin Houston, whatever it takes to get him that record. But yeah, both in the run and the pass game, I think the defensive line's performance is more important in the run game this week than the pass game. I think they'll get their pressure. But when you look at the Colts team, their strengths, Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines, and of course on the other end in that run defense, thank goodness for Chuck Clark. Brandon Stevens looked better in the box. Patrick Queen and our linebacker group, though, has been struggling.
Yeah, they really have been struggling. And when I look at the matchups in this game that could really be difficult for Baltimore, when I look at the ways that Indianapolis could win this game, I immediately go to the running backs. Nyheim Hines is such a good receiving back. He could quite literally have 7+ catches in this game. Maybe that number is low. I wonder what the over under like on a prop bet for him would be. But I would be feeding those running backs in the passing game. I'm sure they're going to try to establish the run a little bit as well, because you mentioned it. The Baltimore linebackers have not been very good at tackling. It's something that the coaches are harping on. They are practicing with pads this week, just like they did last week, with tackling drills to try to shore up that area of the game, which is, it's elementary. It's something that you learn in Pop Warner football, how to wrap up and tackle. And hopefully it's something that's growing and getting better for this Ravens defense.
Yeah, I hope so. And if I'm Indianapolis, that's if I'm looking for a way to attack, and you need a complement to your run game. You use the run game, but complement to it. Nyheim Hines out the backfield. See if you can do to the Ravens a little bit like what we saw with the Lions with DeAndre Swift. People are comparing this matchup to the Broncos matchup, but it feels a little bit like the Lions matchup to me, as far as the running backs, the tight ends. I think that's something that you mentioned to me, actually, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, use Nyheim Hines out of the backfield, see if he can break a tackle, use Jonathan Taylor in as many different ways as possible. And, when it comes to the running game, we'll get into the receivers. But if I was them, I'd use Paris Campbell a little bit to try to get some explosion out of this offense. So really going to be on the linebackers of the Ravens are going to be tested. And I expect a better, more physical game from that group, a more athletic game. It just seems like we need to find some kind of balance in this linebacker crew. Maybe adjust the roles slightly. Not sure what the answer is, but drafted Patrick Queen in the first round, and it looks like the coaches are set. Looked like it last year, Jacob, when they were struggling. The coaches were going to just stick with Patrick Queen. So that's the situation we're dealing with here. Advantage for the Colts, I would say, if it's just you're just going by running backs talent or how they've played versus linebacker play.
Yeah, it's definitely advantage right now. Queen can be a very good linebacker. The problem is he just needs time and development, and he really needs the mentality. He needs to play with more physicality and aggressive nature. It's very much a weird thing. It's kind of like an oxymoron the way he's been playing football in Baltimore at the linebacker position. It's just so anti what we have seen from previous players, and he's not the same guy. You can't expect him to be a thumper with that build and that frame, and what he was known as in college. But he's just not playing with that same ferocity that we grew up, watching Ray Lewis play with, and Bart Scott and those guys. So even CJ Mosley was much better in terms of run support and wrapping up and even shedding blocks. So I agree with you. The running backs in Indianapolis are a positive matchup for them. And next, let's get into the tight ends a little bit, because I think that is another area that they could attack us. Tight ends and running backs are both a position group on offense that normally line up with linebackers. So of course I'm going to target them as well. Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox are their top two guys. They also drafted Kylan Granson out of SMU, a player that I actually liked a decent amount when we watched James Prochet back when Baltimore drafted him. So any of these players could have a good game against Baltimore if they are targeted often, and maybe Jimmy's not on them, and it's a linebacker matchup, because the coverage issues are still there with Queen and Harrison.
I think this is a bounce back game for the Ravens versus the linebackers versus these tight ends, because they are a productive part of Indianapolis's offense, but there are also not a lot of explosion in this group. Mo Alley Cox is a very big receiver, uses his frame well, but I mean, compared to the first 4 weeks when we had Waller, Kelsey, Hawkinson, and Fant, none of these guys fit that same kind of profile as a receiver. So when I say bounce back, it's not necessarily that the Ravens have done a poor job. In fact, they've done a pretty good job on the tight end so far. Kelsey got them. But what I'm saying is I think this is a game where the Ravens can finally say, we're not going to have to over-under play many tricks. We'll stick Chuck Clark on your tight end. We'll stick Brandon Stevens. We'll stick Jimmy Smith on your tight end. Heck, we might even man up and try something different. But I think this is another area to agree with you that Indianapolis can take advantage of. But what I'm saying is, Jake, it's not the same level of concern I have for the running backs, because Jonathan Taylor can rip one off for 80 yards if you miss a tackle. Mo Alley Cox, and certainly not Jack Doyle, is going to do that to you. So how would you match up? What do you think we're going to go with it? Let's assume Elliott's going to be out. Now, Deshaun Elliott, limited participant today. So he may be back for this game. But if he's out and we're playing Brandon Stevens at free safety again, Chuck Clark at strong safety, how would you match up, say, two tight end sets on Doyle and Mo Alley Cox?
Yeah, so I think Mo Alley Cox is the better receiver out of the two. Especially last year, he was showing up more. So I would rather have Chuck Clark on the better guy, and then Brandon Stevens on the other one. Brandon is very athletic, and he is growing into his own, but he's super young at the position. So I'd rather have the heady vet on the better player for now. And Chuck's been playing out of his mind. He's just really, really consistent, a leader of the defense, if not the leader of the defense. So I like him on tight ends, not named, Travis Kelce and Darren Waller, and even on those guys, he does an okay job. So that's what I would kind of lean towards. I'm also a big fan of Jimmy Smith. Anytime he can be on a tight end and just stick him there, you're golden.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you take Stevens and Clark and use them both in a man-to-man situation, then somebody has to take the back end. And that would would probably be Jimmy Smith at this point. Geno Stone will probably be active again if Elliott isn't. Of course, if Elliott's in there, he would be there. But yes, I feel like that's manageable. I feel like we can match up there. But the Colts may have trouble getting much more through the air, because as we switch to the receivers to the cornerback matchup, this is where the Ravens have been talented. Not only that, Anthony Averett is playing really, really well. You look at the Indianapolis attack, T.Y. Hilton hasn't played. They have Michael Pittman, a player I liked in the draft. Jake, I don't know about you. Big,
Me
strong
too.
route runner. You liked him? Yeah. I think Marlon's going to see a lot of, or Pittman's going to have to see a lot of Marlon, is the better way to put it, because he's clearly their best receiver. Zach Pascal, possession receiver. I could see Anthony Averett trying to jump another route this week. I'm loving Anthony Averett's ball skills and eyes. They keep growing by the game, not just by the year, but by the game. So, am I right to say that this is something that I should feel confident about? Colts really are using their two tight ends a lot in the passing game. It looks like Pittman and then everybody else in the passing game.
Yeah, it really is the Pittman show, and the rest of the guys don't really put much fear into you. And for this defense, Pittman doesn't really scare me that much, just because of the corners we do have. I mean, Marlon Humphrey is a top 2, top 3 corner in the NFL when he's healthy. Hopefully he's close to 100%, although you never really are once the season starts. And then Anthony Averett, like you mentioned, has been growing every single week. It was great seeing him getting that interception in Denver, and of course the fluky one against the Raiders in Week 1. So I like what I've seen out of both of our top 2 corners. And then Tavon is a dog. He is a dog. He's coming back into his own, playing good, smart football out of that slot position, and I think he matches up well too.
Yeah, I could see Tavon taking Jack Doyle when he's in the game too, just because. Look, we're not scared of you. We want to get Tavon some touches. They're not using Paris Campbell. I think I mentioned his name earlier, but when you draft a guy like Paris Campbell with that kind of skills, I would be frustrated, kind of Jake, like I was with Duvernay last year, where we weren't finding ways to get him the ball. We just said, well, they're not an explosive. Like Pittman's a possession receiver, Zach Pascal's a possession receiver. Where is that explosion coming from the offense? You can't just rely on your running backs to do that. So if I'm Indianapolis, I'm trying to manufacture 4 or 5 touches, like literally, not just a couple of token ones, ways to get Paris Campbell the ball. It'll be interesting, but it wouldn't surprise me if Tavon doesn't play a lot in this game and they try to go heavy on us and try to run the ball with those 2 tight ends.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. We already talked about their best matchups are likely the running backs and perhaps the tight ends. They don't have an elite guy at the tight end position, but get the linebackers involved as much as you can, and you have a shot until they prove you wrong. So I am totally in agreement on what to anticipate out of the Indianapolis offense and what Baltimore should expect.
So if I had to just pick a guy on defense, now we expect the edge rushers, both of us, to have good games, especially away and Houston.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another guy, and that's Malik Harrison. I thought his best game last year was against the same team. I have clips on the channel of him going head to head with Quentin Nelson, making plays all over the place. So I would love to see Malik start putting his stamp in that linebacker rotation and just physically dominate the Colts. I mean, Frank Reich, very good offensive mind. He works well with Carson Wentz. But when it comes down to brass tacks, man, I want to see Malik put his stamp on the game. What do you see with Malik? It doesn't look like he's been quite the same player, almost like they're hiding some kind of like minor ding that he might have. But he started to look like he came to life against Denver.
Yeah, I mean, last year we saw it in spurts. Super aggressive player. We saw it in the preseason. The way he can lay the wood is second to none. There aren't many linebackers in the NFL doing it the same way that he is. He's a blue collar type player. He fits Baltimore. He's that thumper. A lot of people say, he should be the Mike and Queen should be the Will. That makes sense to me. On a two down basis. Harrison is in there. He can actually engage with offensive linemen, shed blocks, push those guys back. He creates knockback, and he's more aggressive than Queen right now. And I think he has a nice skill set. So Perhaps he has been dealing with some sort of injury, which is why he hasn't played, great ball yet. But we were seeing some good things in the Denver game, and hopefully that continues, like you mentioned.
Yeah, he's filling them like in the Denver game. I saw him filling them run lanes as aggressively as he was last year. So again, just one of them things to speculate, but it would be great if Malik is just getting healthy or had something that we didn't know about and is about ready to turn it on like he did last year when he was in there. Because I was really, really high on Malik Harrison, and I still am. Sometimes seasons don't get off to the starts you want. But yeah, man, Malik Harrison, one of my favorite players on defense. Just love his play style. So let's talk coaching. We'll go back to the offensive side here for a minute. What do you want to see from the Ravens offense in this game philosophically? What do you want to see from Greg Roman and the just the overall attack?
Yeah, so I'd like to see a slightly more balanced attack, although it was a ton of fun seeing Lamar air it out in Denver. And if that's what they have to do to win, if that's the defensive game plan from the Colts is to stop the run, I'm all for it because this passing offense looks really, really strong. And something I'm really interested in is my guy Rashad Bateman, our first round pick, possibly playing in this game. Now, neither of us know how much he would be involved in his first week back, but something tells me if he plays in this game, he's scoring a touchdown. I don't know. I don't know about the rest of the stat line. I'm not sure how many catches, how many reception. I mean, how many receiving yards, but he just seems like a guy that he's gonna have that it factor, and I'm really excited to see that as well as these running backs get more involved. Maybe they kind of key in on one guy for a particular matchup this week. Maybe it's Le'Veon Bell gets more involved, or Latavius Murray continues to get the rock like he has. But I also liked the idea that you mentioned with Nate McCrary possibly being activated. That'd be a ton of fun to see. Use him in that same role that Devontae Freeman's been used in, and see if you can pop off a couple big runs.
Love it, love it. Glad you got me on that one. I just want to see it. I want to see what kind of juice. But my preferred method of attack is going to differ from yours here. I would like to see wherever Xavier Rhodes is, throw the ball. Just test them, and then on the other side they'll have either Yasin in there, or they'll have I don't even remember the other guy's name. Isaiah Rogers, of course. Yes, I remember him coming out of the draft. So let's try to exploit those guys right away, get the Colts out of their wits, and then run the ball on them to finish this game. Like, I would actually like to see the pass set up the run on this game, and not let Indianapolis think that they can stop us on the ground by running some of these older backs, veteran backs up the middle, or rely on Lamar's legs. Like, I kind of want to see us just attack from the start of this game. So what about on defense? How are you attacking Indianapolis in this game?
Yeah, so I'll let my secondary put on the clamps. The receivers shouldn't have much room. And key in on those running backs, especially when you get into second and long, third and long. Just I don't know if you want to, but you could literally switch Marlon onto Naheem Hines or Jonathan Taylor, and then use another corner, Jimmy Smith, that's kind of the jack of all, out on one of the wide receivers for that play, because they are going to have to throw the ball to the running backs to really have some success in this game. So I want to see a good use of the personnel by Wink, which he does pretty often. And I would also like to see us getting pressure on Wentz, whether that is simulated pressure, whether that is blitzing, or just a four-man rush, because our four-man rush this year is definitely improved from what it was last year. Justin Houston, Adafe Owe, Calais Campbell, Justin Matabike, all those guys are key in creating that pressure, and they're doing a really good job. So it's not even about sending 5 or sending 6. It's about getting home. And with this banged up offensive line, I'm cool with sending 4. But I think as the game wears on, we're going to see Wink Martindale scheme things up, try to get in Carson Wentz's head. So what do you think about?
Yeah, I'm with you, Jake. Like, I think Carson Wentz, the difference between that halves when we played Philadelphia this year, it was Calais Campbell had three sacks in that game. Excuse me, and it really was like Carson Wentz. His confidence seems to go up and down since he injured. I see him patting the ball a lot. The more we can make him think, but yeah, like you make a great point. If it's just a 4-man rush and we want to throw 7 in coverage with the receivers they have, that could be a problem for them winning one-on-one. By the same token, if we want to rush him up the A gap and get Calais freed up one-on-one on these guards that haven't played well, we could do that too. So imagine Calais over their new left guard. You think he had 3 sacks in Philly. I mean, it could be the same kind of day that you see. So yeah, I want to see us mix up our approach. I think we'll be in like full Wink mode, but a cat and mouse game with Wink. Like he's not going to be afraid. He's not going to play conservative. He's going to play his game, but at the same time, just really have fun with the different coverages we play, the different blitzes that we bring. So, final thoughts on the game. I'll give mine first, Jake. Switch it up. I feel oddly confident about this game. Weighing the matchups, I feel like it's a look, Ravens. If you tackle on defense and you execute on offense, this is a game where you might see Tyler Huntley play. This is a game we could probably use to get Marlon out of there for a while, get Calais Campbell off his feet. Like, my expectations for this team are high in this game. I do not want to sleepwalk and keep this game close. I believe we have the talent as a team to really take it to Indianapolis if we play well, and that's not a given. So if we win this game 20-13, I'll be happy with the win, because a win is a win. But what I really want to see is not you can't expect a blowout or go for a blowout. But I want to see us control this game much like the Denver game. How do you see things playing out overall, Jake?
Yeah, so I see things pretty similarly to you. My only fear or trepidation is that it trap game, and I think, relatively highly of the Indianapolis Colts. I think their defense is solid. Like we mentioned, we called it safe. And their offense has some weapons, especially the running backs. And yeah, so this brings me back to the Detroit game. The running backs are really good in Indianapolis, and it was a game way too close for comfort. Baltimore shouldn't have had to kick a 66-yard field goal to win that one. And I don't think it's going to be the same game, but I guess I'm a little stitious here. I see the possibility for the Ravens to dominate and win by 20 points.
Would be great to see. Would be great to see. The city deserves it. Wearing the black jersey with purple pants. For those that aren't in the know, I think that combination actually looks slick, kind of like dark look, like the all black is just so clean, but the black with the purple on the pants, it kind of just screams Baltimore to me. I love that. So, Jake, thank you once again. Garnett, no, he's out there. He'll be back joining us next week. Hopefully, everything goes well with Garnett. Hopefully, the guys and gals that are going to the game, give Haloti Nada his welcome. Go get your drinks and your bathroom break out of the way. I want to see Haloti be cheered at that halftime Ring of Honor induction. Truly great Raven, fun guy, great guy to root for, and Haloti Nada getting his jersey retired at halftime. So, or not jersey retired, going into the Ring of Honor. Of course, Matabike has that number. You can't retire jerseys in football, Jake. You run out of numbers.
That's true.
So, yeah. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you to our football family out there. And love you guys. Go Ravens. Good luck this Monday night. Jake, say goodbye to people, brother.
See you guys.